why look closely at shame? Why are we here? So shame is often hidden and unrecognized. So this is part of what I was saying about how shame hasn't been really presented to us because we've not been having conversations. We haven't been taught much about shame in our um, therapy training. It's quite difficult to spot, but also because we generally don't have conversations about shame in as our certainly in the Western society at least. So therefore, it's Chef is a very well-known shame theorist, calls shame a hidden epidemic because it's everywhere, but it's this thing that seems really elusive. It's our most defended against emotion. So what we mean by this is that we're not defensive against shame. We have to defend against shame because shame is also one of the most difficult emotions that we can experience, especially when we don't understand shame. So one of my missions, if you like, is to help people to change their relationship with shame and really understand shame as well. It can be a major factor in other psychopathology, so things like anxiety, guilt, depression. So again, things that you see in the therapy room, the likelihood is that shame is involved in that somewhere. So as I said, it can be confused with other things that we might see on a more regular basis. So we think that the reason why shame wasn't historically or hasn't been historically spoken about in training, and it's absolutely brilliant that shame seems to be having a bit of a moment right now, and there seems to be lots of training on shame, which is fantastic, is because Freud and Bowlby, two very influential characters when it comes to psychotherapy training or counseling training, they didn't pay much attention to shame. The thought or the theory about Freud not necessarily wanting to consider shame a great deal is probably because he had so much of it that he preferred to think about guilt. That felt easier for him, so therefore a lot of his writing was around guilt rather than shame. Freud thought that shame was a feminine emotion and didn't think that it deserved much attention, where he saw guilt was a masculine emotion. So again, that's where his focus was, and we think that that's been what the lineage has been, is because these two quite influential people generally ignored shame. So the other reason why it's important to look at shame is that this is the thing that can keep clients stuck. So if you think about people who you've maybe worked with, you are working with currently, people you've worked with in the past, where you feel like you just can't get beyond, or there's just something where you're really not feeling like you're able to help that person. It won't be you. It's likely it's the shame that's keeping them stuck in position, because shame is about safety. Shame is about wanting to make sure that we don't move so that we don't be seen. So what is it? It's an emotion, it's a human emotion that we all have, but it's always relational. Shame is about keeping our relationships intact. It's part of our attachment system. Now I'm going to talk a lot more about that a little bit later on. So it's highly complex and it relates to all aspects of being human. So as I said, my research was about compulsive sexual behavior in men. I could have applied shame to pretty much any presentation that we see within the therapy room, really. So it's our sense of exposure, vulnerability. It can make us have a desire to hide or to attack. And what I'm talking about here is a particular aspect of shame. This is about uncontained shame, which will make a lot more sense as we go through. It has a very somatic way of presenting itself. So again, uncontained shame. So physiologically, we can feel frozen, panic, we can get a sensation to the gut. And there's varying degrees of shame as well. So the purpose of shame. So some theorists think that there is no purpose to shame at all. Others see it as a vital component of being human, and this is the camp that I come from. I think shame is one of the most, well, all emotions are important, but shame specifically is vitally important because it is part of our attachment system. It's there to help us to maintain social bonds. if you think about it from a perspective of if we were in a shameless society, we wouldn't have survived as a species very long. We would have wiped each other out. So its purpose is to keep us attached to caregivers and the tribe originally. So there's a theory that shame was developed in humans to keep us attached, literally attached to tribes. When we weren't necessarily top of the food chain, when we had more predators and we were in tribes, if we did something to go against the tribe, we had the risk of being ousted, we had the risk of being expelled from the tribe, and we're not going to survive that. So shame was there to actually keep us in line with the rules of the tribe, to keep us attached to the group. And that's still the purpose that it has now, just our tribes look very different and our groups look quite different. So it prevents us from being abandoned. Therefore, shame is absolutely vital to our survival. So this is why I say that shame is one of the most important things that we have as being human, because there's nothing more important than surviving, obviously. So shame is ultimately about loss, abandonment, and survival. So if you work with grief, there will be shame. If you work with children who've been adopted or children who are in foster care, there will be shame. Shame is literally just everywhere.